Welcome to the deep dive, and a special welcome to the very first deep dive in our new series, The Inner Architecture.
It's great to be here. Today, our mission is to really dissect the machinery of how we make decisions.
Yeah, and for that, we're going to pull out the most practical, the most actionable insights from thinking in bets, making smarter decisions when you don't have all the facts.
It's a fantastic book by Annie Duke, who's a world-class poker player turned decision scientist. We're really trying to find a shortcut to better judgment here.
And that title alone, Thinking in Bets, it just cuts right to the core of it, doesn't it? It basically says certainty is an illusion.
It absolutely does. The main idea, the synthesis of the whole book, is that every single decision we make is a bet. It's a bet on a future we can't fully know.
From what to have for breakfast, too? A
Well,
huge career change.
Exactly. And when you boil it all down, your life outcome is determined by just two things: the quality of your decisions and luck.
Okay, that sounds simple enough on the surface, but telling those two-part skill versus luck, that's where we all just seem to fail, constantly.
That's the whole game. The skill we're trying to build is learning to separate them, to look at an outcome and know if it was because your process was great or you just got lucky.
And there's no better example of how badly we need this skill than the trap she calls resulting.
Right, judging a decision purely based on how it turned out.
The book kicks off with, the most painful example imaginable: Super Bowl XLIX.
Oh, that infamous moment. Seattle Seahawks, coached by Pete Carroll, they're on the 1-yard line against the Patriots, seconds to go.
Everyone in the world expects them to hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch, their star running back.
Instead, they call a pass, it gets intercepted, game over. They lose the Super Bowl.
I remember the headlines. It was just unanimous. The single worst play call in the history of the NFL. Pure insanity.
And that right there, that's resulting in action. Because if you actually step back and look at the data before that play happened, the decision was statistically sound.
Wait, hold on. Statistically sound? How? How can losing the Super Bowl like that ever be considered a sound decision? Because you have to evaluate the choice based on the probabilities before you know the result. And the data from that season showed that an interception from the 1-yard line was incredibly rare.
How rare.
The rate was about 2%. In fact, in that entire season, out of 66 passes thrown from the opponent's 1-yard line, 0. Not a single one had been intercepted.
So they had something like a 98% chance of a good outcome, whether it was a touchdown or just an incomplete pass, and the 2% thing happened.
Exactly. Pete Carroll was the victim of a very low probability event with a catastrophic consequence, and then we, as observers, fall into what's called hindsight bias.
We pretend we knew it was going to happen all along.
Yeah, we make that 2% outcome feel like it was 100% certainty. We completely confuse the quality of the process with the quality of the result.
And that's so dangerous because it just stops all learning. If you think the bad outcome was totally predictable, you never bother to look at the process that led to it.
You've got it. It's like if you fire an employee based on solid data and legal advice, and 6 months later they start a billion-dollar company, that doesn't mean your decision was bad. It means you got unlucky. You made the right bet, and it just led to a bad result.
This all leads to the book's central model for how we should think about life. Life is poker, not chess. Why is that distinction so important?
Well, chess is what's called a game of complete information. All the pieces are visible. There are no secrets. If you had a powerful enough computer, there is a theoretically correct move every single time. Luck is basically 0.
So if you lose at chess, you were just outthought. There's no one else to blame.
That's right. But life and poker are games of incomplete information. You can make the absolute best possible decision with the cards you have, fold when you should, bet when you should, and still lose because of the cards you can't see.
That's the key. In life, you're always making calls with, 40% of the facts missing? So why are our brains so bad at dealing with all this uncertainty?
It's because of our brain's default wiring. There's great research from Daniel Gilbert that shows how we process information. It's not, hear something, vet it, then believe it.
It's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
Our default is hear it, believe it instantly, and then maybe, sometimes, if we have the energy, we go back and check if it's true.
We're credulous creatures, as the book says. We just accept things first.
It's an old survival mechanism. It's better to immediately believe the rustle in the grass is a lion and be wrong than to pause and think about it and be eaten.
A great tool for surviving on the savannah, but a terrible one for making complex choices today.
And here's where it gets really strange and sort of depressing. Being smarter doesn't necessarily help you fight these biases.
Wait, what?
Yeah, in some cases, it actually makes it worse.
How can being more intelligent, more analytical, make you worse at finding the truth?
It's because of something called motivated reasoning. A researcher named Dan Kahan found that people who are highly numerate, good with numbers, are also way better at spinning data to support what they already believe.
So they use their intelligence like a lawyer to build a case for their client, and the client is their own pre-existing belief.
You nailed it. They don't use their brain power to find the truth. They use it to protect their identity. His study used objective data on crime and gun control and found that the smartest people made more mistakes interpreting the numbers if the right answer challenged their political views.
That's terrifying. It means being smart just makes you a better rationalizer, not a better truth seeker.
You can, yeah.
So if our brains are wired against us and even being smart can backfire, what's the actual strategy? How do we break this cycle?
It all starts with a huge mindset shift. You have to get rid of thinking in black and white, right and
Should we
wrong.
bring in the gray?
You have to incorporate uncertainty into every belief. This is the wanna bet mindset.
So instead of saying this project will succeed, you have to quantify it.
Yes, you have to put a number on it. Say, I'm 65% confident this will work. Or, I used to be 58% sure, but this new data just dropped my confidence to 46%.
I can see the psychological benefit right away. It's much easier to go from 58% to 46% than it is to admit you were 100% wrong. It's not a failure, it's just an update.
It's just an update. Once you're at 100%, any evidence against you feels like a personal attack. But if you're constantly adjusting your confidence levels, you can gracefully update your beliefs without that ego-bruising battle.
So if we start treating every decision like a bet, we can apply this to really big life choices. The book has that wild example of Johnny World Hennigan.
Right, the pro gambler who took a $30,000 bet just to live in Des Moines, Iowa for a month.
Which sounds crazy, but the thinking process is the same as, say, taking a new job.
It is. A new job is a huge bet. You have a known cost. You're giving up your old job. You have uncertain payoffs. Will you like it? Will the company do well? And known risks. Hennigan just made the stakes explicit with cash.
And after you've made the bet, the next critical step is what she calls fielding outcomes.
This is where you have to sort what happened into the skill bucket, things you controlled, and the luck bucket, things you didn't. If you don't do this, you can't learn.
And this is where we crash right into the self-serving bias.
The biggest roadblock there is. We are just so hardwired to credit our successes to our genius and blame our failures on bad luck.
The data on this is just amazing.
It's hilarious and tragic. One study on car accidents found that 75% of drivers in accidents blame someone else.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But even in single vehicle accidents, where they literally drove into a pole, 37% of drivers still found a way to blame something else.
I think we've all had those moments. The mathematician John von Neumann apparently used to crash his car all the time and claim the tree stepped into my path. It's so easy to blame the tree.
It is. And that tendency means we just stop learning. So the strategy has to involve building systems to force us to be objective.
Which brings us to tool number 1, the buddy system.
You need a decision group, a truth-seeking pod. The research points to 3 people as a good number, 2 to disagree, and 1 to help mediate. And the group's goal has to be exploratory thought, genuinely considering alternatives, not confirmatory thought.
Right. If your group just exists to tell you you're a genius, you've built an echo chamber, not a truth-seeking pod.
Exactly. And to make it work, you need strict rules, which is tool number 2, rules of engagement, which are based on the Mertonian norms from the sociology of science.
They go by the acronym CU8OS. So let's start with C, communism. That's a bit of a charged word.
It is, but here it really means communalism, or just data sharing. The rule is you have to share all the relevant details of your decision process, total transparency.
To avoid that Rashomon effect, where everyone has a different story because they only have a piece of the puzzle.
Precisely. In the book, the CEO who fired his president initially thought it was a terrible decision because the company struggled. But once he shared the whole story with his group, the coaching he'd offered, the performance data, they realized the process was sound. The bad result was masking a good decision.
Okay, that makes sense. U is for universalism.
This means you judge the idea, not the person who said it. We have to fight the urge to dismiss a good idea because it came from a rival, or accept a bad idea because it came from someone we like.
Vet the message, not the messenger. Okay, D is for disinterestedness.
This is all about removing conflicts of interest. And the biggest conflict of interest when you're analyzing a decision is knowing the outcome.
Because that outcome bias is just too powerful to resist.
It's almost impossible. And poker players have a great trick for this. When they ask for advice on a hand they played, they often won't say whether they won or lost the pot until after their friends have analyzed their strategy.
Oh, that's smart. They remove the results so people can focus only on the quality of the bets.
And we should do that with our own life decisions. Finally, O is for organized skepticism.
You have to make dissent part of the system.
You have to. You can't just hope someone speaks up. You need a designated devil's advocate or a red team, like the CIA uses, whose job it is to find the flaws in your plan.
So CEDOS gives us the external structure. But then there's tool number 3, mental time travel, for fighting our internal battles.
Right, especially our tendency for what's called temporal discounting. We value today's pleasure way more than tomorrow's well-being. This is the Night Jerry problem.
The classic Seinfeld bit, Night Jerry stays up super late having fun.
Knowing full well that he's totally screwing over Morning Jerry, who has to wake up exhausted, the future pain is discounted to almost zero.
So to fight Night Jerry, we need what's called a Ulysses contract.
It's a pre-commitment. You make a rational choice now to bind your future emotional self. Just like Ulysses tied himself to the mast so he couldn't be tempted by the siren song.
What's a good modern example?
Setting a budget before you go house hunting. You and your partner agree on a maximum price. Before you walk into the house you know you're going to fall in love with. You use today's logic to protect yourself from tomorrow's emotion.
We can even take this idea of recruiting our future selves a step further.
Absolutely. With a technique called backcasting. Instead of planning forward from today, you imagine you've already achieved a future goal. Say, a year from now, your project was a massive success.
And then you work backward.
You work backward and write down all the steps that must have happened to get you there. Research shows this increases your ability to identify the correct path by about 30%.
And you combine that with its opposite, the pre-mortem.
The pre-mortem is crucial. You imagine the opposite. It's a year from now, and the project failed spectacularly. Now work backward and figure out all the reasons why.
So you're forced to think about the obstacles and build contingency plans.
It builds out the negative side of the decision tree, the part our optimistic brains usually ignore.
All of these tools are really about one thing, keeping all the possible futures in your mind, even after one of them has already happened.
Which brings us to the final great analogy. Time is a tree, or dendrology. Think of your life as a tree. The past is the solid trunk.
And the present moment is where the trunk splits into all these branches.
Right. Those branches are all the potential futures, all the things that could happen based on your next decision. But once you make a choice and time moves forward, only one of those branches becomes reality.
And the present moment acts like a chainsaw.
A chainsaw, exactly. It lops off every single one of those other branches, all those other possibilities. The one thing that did happen, even if it was a 2% chance, grows into the new, thick trunk of the past. Hindsight bias makes it seem like that was the only branch that ever could have existed.
And our job is to remember all those other branches that got cut off.
That's the whole job.
So after all this hard work adopting this whole mindset, what's the ultimate payoff for someone listening?
It's compounded success. I mean it. Because most of the world is stuck in that loop of resulting and self-serving bias. They never actually learn. So even a small improvement in how you calibrate your beliefs, just getting slightly more accurate, slightly more often, leads to exponentially better results over a lifetime.
And I want to leave you with one last thought on this, building on that idea of the tree and hindsight bias. Just think about the 2016 U.S. election. Most poll aggregators put Hillary Clinton's chances somewhere around 60 to 70%, which means Donald Trump's chance was a very real 30 to 40%.
A 30 to 40% chance is not some weird fluke, and a event with those odds is going to happen pretty often.
But when that 30-40% outcome actually happened, what did everyone do? They took a chainsaw to the 70% branch. They said the polls were wrong, the odds were meaningless, as if 70% meant 100%. The real skill is learning to accept that the best decision you can make, the 70% bet, can still lead to a bad outcome 30% of the time. The goal isn't to always get good outcomes. It's to live comfortably knowing you made the best possible bet even when the world deals you a bad card.
That's the mastery.
This has been our first deep dive into the inner architecture. If you found these tools helpful for your own thinking, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you can catch all of our future deep dives. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.